I actually thought about wearing a t-shirt today, but you know what? Space Jam vest.
Oh, God. Yeah, I'm gonna have to put a trigger warning at the start of the episode.
Sun's out, guns out, mate. Hello, and welcome to God and Colour.
We discuss all things animation, video games, and digital drawing.
I'm Josh, your smooth as butter host for today.
Why do you sound like you're on a late night radio show?
Because I'm just like the small dulcet tones of Josh.
I thought that was me, but there we
Settle
go.
in, ladies.
And I am the just completely oblivious and unaware of any of these openings that Josh does, Tyler. And that's me. Yeah, but how have you been, buddy?
I've been very good. I've been doing what I always do, which is more like a tagline. What have I been doing? I've been doing a bit of drawing. I've been playing Tears of the
What have you been
Kingdom.
drawing? I feel like you usually show me, but I haven't seen nothing.
I've been drawing myself as a Funko Pop.
Oh, you did show me that.
Yes, I have. I've been drawing myself as a Funko Pop. I've been working out different styles. I think I'm going to draw myself as a Simpsons character.
Oh, that's jokes. Are you going to draw yourself yellow?
Yeah. I'm gonna try, because we want to design a new logo. I'm going to try and just incorporate different meta universes.
Spoiler.
Well, they're aware. We spoke about it last week, didn't we?
We definitely did not.
We need the feedback. Yeah, we did.
No.
Oh, well,
We didn't.
spoiler alert, we are making a new logo, and we'd like your feedback to say.
We would like
go
you
into
guys to feedback on it. Yeah.
Other than that, I watched. I discussed this last week. I watched all of King Kong. Have you started King Kong yet?
Not yet. No.
You're a terrible person.
And
Then I watched not a animation film, but would make a chef's kiss of a video game, Extraction 2.
I've not watched that.
I've been having the comparisons between like John Wick and Extraction 2, and I think that John Wick pips it slightly because it's more stylish and it's got a great score. However, Extraction is just visceral action. There's like a 20-minute.
If there was a film that could sum up what Josh likes, I think it's the Extraction series.
There's a scene. I say it's a scene. There's like a 20-minute action scene where it goes from like 2 points. It goes from a prison to a train, but it doesn't cut once.
Yeah, I've heard.
And it's actually quite disorientating.
Disorientating?
Yeah, my brother-in-law is disorientating. I've inherited that. Thanks, Lewis. Disorientating. Yes. And you get through it, and you're like nearly finishing. You're like, this is. My eyes hurt because there's no breath in the middle of it, of like cutting to someone else and having that little breather, that tiny 10-second breather of like, oh, let's have a chat about this. It's just one continuous take. Oh, seems like one continuous take. And
I do like when I think there's something to be said about continuous shots for the just everyone involved. It shows how synchronized a crew can be for things like that. I really like it. I like it when they do it. You
should watch it.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, I haven't even watched the first one. Sometimes, every now and then, I get a real craving for some action movies. Yeah, really had to slip in movie there.
Yeah.
But yeah, movies, guys. Action movies.
The film variety. Yep. It's okay.
Oh,
just plow through it. Just continue. Just go. Wrong word.
Stop. Let's crack on. Anyway, anything else? Been up to anything else?
Not that I'm aware of. No, I've just been. I don't know, because I talk to you all the time. I don't know if I'm aware of anything else that I've been doing. Just working towards our goals. I did have an epiphany, which doesn't happen very often with me, as you're well aware.
It certainly does not. No.
Well, I've sort of sat, I've took a step back from doing the game dev stuff and just sort of seeing where I'm at with it. And I actually think because I want to actually try and make like an Extraction type thing, even like a demo that I could do.
That's the end game, sure.
Yeah, and then there's there's a software you can get. Well, software. There's a product you can buy on the Unreal Store, which is essentially like a third-person shooter animated character that can pull like an assault rifle off his back, roll around the room, duck, cover, climb, and it's all done for you. And I think now I've been doing it for like a year. I think where I actually fail and like with the digital art side of it, we like that quick gratification. We're both very much the same people. We like to do a drawing and it comes out and we're like, oh, that's really good. I'm really pleased with that. Whereas like the animation side of it and the game dev side of it, it's a long drawn out process to do a really small thing that you just really don't get that sort of like, oh, that's really good, because it has to sort of build to something massive. Like if you can make a guy aim down a gun and shoot a bullet, that's a whole week's worth of work. Whereas like aiming down the gun is like a day, and it's just like, well, you can aim down the gun, so what? Whereas now, in terms of me making stuff, I think I'm at a stage where I'm like, actually, I can use other people's work and put that in my game, because they don't hold the rights to those things. They put them on the Unreal Store to say, use this in your game. If this makes you money, go ahead. And rather than just trying to make those things, just use them. Someone's designed a level that's a prison. I can take that level, change it, switch it up a little bit, take the animation thing, put that in there, change the ambient inclusion, the lighting, everything, and make it to what I want it to be. And I think it just makes my life easier, rather than trying to do every single detail to have that sort of ballsy statement and go, well, I made everything myself, because I'll be 65 by the time the game comes out.
Yeah, no, that's totally fair.
And that is
totally
a very real thing. So on my tangent, what have you been up to, brother?
Well, as always, I'm not too shabby. So.
Imagine my shock.
God.
One day you'll be like, I've been feeling very shabby. And I'm like, what?
It's been one hell of a shabby week.
Yeah.
No. I actually, since the last episode, I haven't done any drawing this week, but I have been doing some animating. And I actually want to touch a bit more on the point you were just saying about, that quick gratification. And I think for me it's a bit of a double-edged sword. I want that gratification quickly, so that instant gratification, that is a nice feeling, but also I want to put the work in and actually do it and look at this product and go, yeah, I made that, that's all me. But I think one thing I am learning, and one thing I have learned a lot about the industry, is that it's impossible to draw every single frame. Impossible. Reuse stuff, get if I'm doing a character moving, think about what elements need to move, right? If I'm doing, because otherwise I'm going to be there all day drawing an entire frame. Imagine trying to make a film, and we worked out like if we needed to make 20,000 frames, I haven't got time to draw 20,000 drawings. I've been drawing since November, and I still haven't done 20. I don't think I've even done 100 drawings. And that time, I've done a lot. Don't get me wrong. I've done a fair whack, but yeah. But I have been doing some animation. I did one of a bow and arrow,
beautiful,
which was really cool. And then I've started doing one of a turtle swimming through the sea. And I want to kind of make that into I think I sent you the turtle, didn't I? Yes, I definitely did.
I'm going to go sit for the sake of it and say yes, you did.
What a terrible friend.
I actually don't think you did.
I definitely did, and I'll find it. However, I've been watching so much Ghibli, just rewatching lots of Ghibli. I rewatched My Neighbor Totoro last night.
Interesting.
It's just so good.
No spoilers.
No spoilers. But one last thing I wanted to mention about my animation. Do you remember I did the little man? I rotoscoped me dancing.
Yeah.
Remember that?
The photos in the ether somewhere.
No, that's the photo. But I'm on about the video of video of me. Right, that video does exist.
Yeah.
But what I went and did after I've been doing so much research, what I also did was I went out and took out 50% of the frames, dropped it, and then made every frame two frames long, and it just looks like such a nicer piece of animation. It looks so much neater. So
when obviously we discussed this last week when we were talking about Ghibli. So with it being 2 frames, is it a sort of like a quick sort of transition, or is it Is it?
So when it's 24 frames, if it's
Yeah.
one image per frame, that moves kind of, when people watch this video,
Yeah.
we are moving at 24 frames per second,
Right. Okay.
right? But in animation, it can look a little bit jarring if everything kind of moves 1 frame per second. It's just I don't know how to explain it. It can just
Does
it
it
just
like
makes
skip?
it very uncomfortable. But you kind of it moves almost a little bit too realistically, and it's an animation. It's not meant to look completely realistic, right? But then, so traditional Western animation is done on 2 frames. So that means that if you have 24 frames in a second, 12 of them are images, and they all last for 2 frames per within that 24 frame.
So
Yeah.
when you're drawing your image, you'll take. So say you've got your bow and arrow, and you've got your bow.
That's
there,
all
and
in 2 frames.
So that'll be 2 of the same bow in 2 frames, or would the second frame be slightly different?
So the actual arrow and
Yeah.
the bow and arrow and the target at the end, they're all in 2 frames. But all the kind of the whooshing effects, that's all
Yeah.
1 frame. I've done that as 1 frame.
Oh, right, okay.
It's a really cool thing, and I think that's one thing that's really cool about animation these days is the layering. You've got the opportunity to layer things nowadays. So yeah, I've been doing that. But yeah, that's pretty much all I've been doing. I've been playing a ton of Tears of the Kingdom. A ton of it. I'm just really taking my time with it, but I've done so much this weekend. But like, I've done nothing towards the main storyline all weekend. I've just been
I
trying
did the
to
same.
unlock stuff and find cool Easter eggs. It's just so much to do.
I haven't played since I have played it. Since I told you that I had played it, I haven't played it since because it is a game that you have to sit down and just be like, right, I'm in this world for a
You
bit.
could waste weeks on that
Yeah.
game and not even scratch the surface. So in Breath of the Wild, I found all the Korok seeds. I absolutely have not got the energy this time to find them all, but
Well-
I will find them all.
Well, in
'Cause
I
there's
do.
over 900.
Yeah, but it busts out all your inventory, doesn't it? And
Yeah,
makes you, like,
that's the
big-
only reason why. 'Cause
Yeah, I
I'm
do that.
struggling.
Yeah, and like the whole thing with Breath of the Wild is you don't upgrade your hearts because you can have food that can give you hearts, and instead you actually upgrade all your stamina when you do all the shrines.
To be fair,
Is that-
when you've done all the shrines, you
Yeah.
get max stamina and health
Oh,
by the time you've done all the shrines.
fair.
So I like to balance it out, but you need stamina more than hearts, I think. However, I'm finding in Tears, I don't know if it's just me, but some enemies, like the big stone taluses, the big stone monsters that just used to throw their arms at you.
Yeah.
I'm finding they're a lot harder in this game.
Mm.
They seem to be taking me a lot longer to kill, and it's really winding me up. So yeah. That's what I've been doing. We that was a long intro, Josh. I think we went into that a bit. But today we are going to be discussing. Well, before we get into that, so me and Josh recently have decided to sort of rein it in and kind of refine the platform a little bit. So last week we did a bit of a deep dive into Studio Ghibli. And kind of looked at a more creative aspect. We kind of have decided to step away from the industry news as much. We will still look at relevant pieces that happen within the industry. We talked a lot about Disney and stuff, and things like that. Those are important things that we will discuss, but we want to look at the more creative aspect and think about how these things affect things from a creative point of view. And so we've decided to start doing it as more like case studies. So last week we did Studio Ghibli. We're kind of going to alternate each week between digital art, video games and animation. So this week we are back in the video game corner, and we're going to be looking at a really amazing first party studio for Sony, which is Sucker Punch Productions.
A little indie studio.
Josh's little favourite line, little indie studio. He's going to start calling us a little indie podcast soon.
Yeah. Even when we finally made it, we're just an indie podcast, just finding a way in a galaxy. You know what I mean?
So niche. You've never heard of us? You would never have heard of it. No. So yeah, Sucker Punch Studios this week, or Productions rather. I'm going to be talking about a few of the creative aspects and the journey they've gone through, because they've been through a lot. So should we get into it?
Let's get into it.
So, Sucker Punch Productions. What a studio. So, just to give you guys a little bit of background into these guys. So, they're an American video game developer based in Bellevue, Washington. You will know them most notably for, well, they've only actually got 4 IPs, but you'll know 3 out of 4 if you're not an avid gamer, which is Sly Cooper, the old PS1 games where you played as a thief raccoon, Infamous, which was a game where you played as a dude running around a very punky city with superpowers geared towards electricity, and then of course most notably Ghost of Tsushima. And the other game that they did was a game called Rocket, which they worked with Insomniac, who have obviously branched off into their own thing and have famously gone on to do the Spider-Man series games for PlayStation. Interestingly, that they split ways and both became first-party studios for Sony. So those are the games that they've worked on. They've not really worked on anything else. No idea if they're going to be working on a brand new IP. I'm pretty sure they've said they're doing a Tsushima 2, aren't they?
I think it's all but confirmed, but I would hedge my bets because Tsushima did so well and everybody loved it. If they're not making a sequel, they're not doing it right. You'd
have a hard time trying to find someone that didn't like the game.
Yeah.
I don't know anyone that's played Ghost that didn't like it at all. Everyone I know likes it. Don't get me wrong, it's not a perfect game, nothing is, but it's up there.
I mean, up there. You're very wrong, but it's a great game. It is.
No
if you want to be a samurai or a ninja, Ghost of Tsushima's for you. Yeah, buy a PS5 for it. And you know what? I've told you this before because we did a deep dive on the PlayStation games of games that defined a generation. Yep. I bought DLC for Ghost of Tsushima, and I don't buy DLC for anything.
Did you get the director's cut? Did you?
Yeah, well, no, because the director's cut came out on PS5, so I had a PS4 at the time, so I bought the Iki Island expansion.
Yeah, I've got the Iki Island, but not played it. I've bought the director's cut and I'm plan to play it. But
so good.
I can't do anything until I finish Tears of the Kingdom.
It's so good.
So we're going to be looking into them and kind of the creative, the journey that they've gone on as an industry and kind of their creative aspects and what makes them stand out from the rest, because they have had such an amazing journey and it's only been pretty much an upward journey for them. Josh, what are your thoughts on Sucker Punch?
I think they've pretty much gone from strength to strength. I think that when they created Sly Cooper, when he was in his first outing, stealing, and I'll tell you how embedded this is into my mind, the thievius raccoonus, that was, a game changer of a game. That's one of the childhood memories, sitting on the bed with my brother and he's playing Sly Cooper because I don't know how to play it, and just watching this blue and purple palette of just beautiful art, just be the greatest platformer ever. Just all the levels were all really good, all the upgrades were really good, and it's just everything had sort of a Metroid sort of Vania style where you could unlock things and get through it then, and then from that they moved on to Infamous, which was a console defining game. In terms of it came out at the same time as Prototype did. Prototype was a very sort of off the rails nut job of a game, and you could be destroying a city, whereas this
they very much were very similar, weren't they? And they went head to head.
And
for me, Prototype edged it out, but then Infamous kind of suddenly went by.
Well, that was it. Infamous itself outlasted Prototype. Prototype had 1 and 2, and it was really good, and you could sort of live that. What if you were a superhero in a city and you were a bad guy? Play that sort of narrative. Whereas Infamous had the same thing, where it was you could be evil, you could be bad, but here's one of the best looking cities on a PlayStation 3.
Yeah.
And go and enjoy that and go around the different places, and if you wanted to traverse the power lines, you'd use your electricity and you'd skate along the power lines you were a skater in this instance. And then they brought out the second one, and then they brought out the infamous Second Son, which is very much a graphical powerhouse of a game, and it's been out, I want to say 5 years, and still
longer.
Was it longer?
So Infamous came out in 2014.
When did
Second Son?
Was it 2014 Second Son?
Yes, because it's the bookend game for. So weirdly enough, and they didn't even intend to do this. Sucker Punch bookend the PS4 journey, right? So the first party game to release on a PS4 was Sucker Punch with Infamous Second Son, and then the last one was Ghost of Tsushima. So it's quite an interesting journey, and so you can see how long they worked on it. It was a 6-year journey between Ghost and Second Son.
Well, from Second Son, even now, even in today's standards of graphics, Second Son still holds up.
Yeah.
Like, and I would argue, looks better than some games that are out today. And that shows that there's a talent behind this game. And then they completely diverted. They went, you know what?
Let's do that.
Yeah, there's a market. There's a market that Assassin's Creed are just not touching, and and it's taken them God knows 15 years.
It is weird that Japan have done. Assassin's Creed have done a Japan game, but it's like one of their little handheld games.
Yeah.
For one of the handheld, it's not a mainline Assassin's Creed game, which
everybody asked for it. Everybody asked for it, and then Sucker Punch went, I think there's something there that everybody in the world wants. Say Assassin's Creed in Japan, and essentially went, we'll do something like that.
It's money just waiting to happen.
It is.
But before we get into Ghost, I kind of want to rein it back a little bit and talk more about Sly and Infamous, because those are where the journey begins. Let's really go through it, break it down. So we've both been doing a ton of research into the studio in a very short amount of time. Like, I don't know if you remember, we said we recorded on Friday. We usually record on a Monday. It's Monday today. So we've had 3 days to sort of turn this around. But we did it. So we do these things for you. Yeah. I was all day yesterday. I was watching videos. I was reading articles. All for you guys. But don't thank me. You guys are just welcome. But yeah, so Sly was the game that sort of propelled them into where they are. It was a first party game for Sony, and I remember what I learned, and I remember from watching this in the video, is Brian Fleming, who is one of the creative directors at Sucker Punch. He said that when he started making games like Mario 64 were a huge impact on him. He was like, I want to make a game that kind of is in the same vein as that. So why you get a very stylized game like Sly. Obviously, Sly hasn't gone on to have the legacy that Mario ever will do. No, we know that. But it's insane to me the impact that Nintendo had on almost everyone. And at the time when that game came out, the game that they felt that they were unqualified to compete with, of all games, is Abe's Odyssey.
Yeah.
To be fair, I used to really rate the Abe's Odyssey games. Like, they were so good. But now, if you played that now, you'd be like, wow.
Unpopular opinion.
Go on.
I wasn't an Abe's Odyssey fan. I
don't think that is an unpopular opinion. They're very weird.
Well, I was like the you press the buttons and he'd make noises and stuff, and he'd yo, and that was like entertaining for about 10 minutes. However, I was a Munch's Odyssey fan, where little Munch would roll around on a wheelchair, and he'd be like running around place, and he'd like skirting around, and it were all 3D. It was nuts. It was literally like nuts to play that, and I was like, this is the greatest thing ever. But Abe sort of like, it skipped me by, and then when it was released as like a HD, re-released as like a HD or like a sequel to it, and I was just like, nah, I'm okay.
Maybe the IP hasn't aged as well as we thought it had.
No.
They were good though. I remember as a kid, I really used to enjoy the Abe's Odyssey games. And so for them, that's where. So they decided not to, find an audience where they could aim it to, and that's why they went with something like Sly. And they went for more stylized approaches. What could they achieve, right? Instead of having, big epic stories, they decided, okay, we'll just make our cutscenes a little bit more stylized and a little bit more interesting rather than these real cinematic pieces. And that kind of stuff as well. And like for them, a big moment was making Sly's tail look so soft. And granted, I think they pulled it off. Sly is a cool character. We'll put a picture of him on the screen now. There you go. There's a picture of Sly for you. And then from there, they went on to do Infamous. And, completely changed everything. I wouldn't say it changed too much in terms of style, Josh, would you say? It still kind of has that very comic book kind of feel to it.
Yeah, it's just before we get into Infamous, I would like to point out something which I've just found out now because I was just reminiscing with Sly Cooper going, that art style was chef's kiss good.
Sublime.
Very good. Very well done. Like, it looked like a Saturday morning cartoon. It was great.
PlayStation had, like, PS1 had some of the really cool, like, stylized games. Like, what was it? Parappa the Rapper. Do you remember that one?
Yeah. Music, kick, punch. It's all in the mind. Yeah. So Sly Cooper actually had an animated film.
Did it?
Yes.
Stop it.
Unfortunately, it was in production, but there are some images of it, and I'll tell you right now, bruv, they look banging. Like,
bring it back. I like Sly.
Like, if you have a quick Google, you can look at the Sly Cooper images. It looks like a Pixar movie, and I was like, oh, but I think whatever happened, it just fizzled out. But there's some images of it, and I was like, oh,
it is a very picturesque, like Pixar-esque kind of idea, isn't it? It's a raccoon, it's a thief. You know, it's there, it's right there for you.
So yes,
I was doing a lot of research into Sly, and I was, I'm an avid Reddit user. I like to dabble from time to time, the am I the asshole things, and then all the way over to things that are relevant to us. And I was reading a lot of stuff about Sly, and there's a huge following for Sly, and people want another game.
Would you say Sly is almost, just to quote Insomniac again, as popular, if not the same amount of level as Ratchet and Clank?
No, I'd say Ratchet and Clank is definitely more popular.
Just because I think because Sly's more of a slow burner.
I think also because Ratchet has survived the test of time. Ratchet and Clank is still going. There was a lot of games that came out around that time that were all very similar. Rayman, like when they went 3D with Rayman, Jak and Daxter, Ratchet and Clank, Sly. Those games all sort of came out around the same time, and only Ratchet and Clank out of the four of them seem to have made it. Rayman is obviously gone, but it's Rabbids now, isn't it? That's the thing that's kept them going. Rayman's nowhere to be seen, despite the fact he was everyone's favourite character from the back end of the 90s all the way through to the mid 2000s, I'd say. So yeah, and then they obviously went on to make Infamous, which isn't an open world game, and I admittedly never bought it. I never actually intended to play Infamous, because when it came out, I always went for Prototype. I was really hyped for Prototype. I remember it when it came out. I was like, I'm really hyped for it. I actually was very underwhelmed when I started playing it. But Infamous, and the only reason I played it is because, do you remember way back in like 2011 when Sony PSN went down completely for like a month, maybe two? And then when it came back, there was like a handful of games, and everyone got a free game. I went for Infamous, and then went, why didn't I play this sooner? It's such a cool game. Like, it's so fun.
Yeah. I wish I'd have dabbled more in it, just because of, like, looking back, reminiscing now. I think that I love a good world build, and it was, they're both from Infamous 1 and Infamous 2. Were both really well done, worlds. So it kind of skipped by, and I played Prototype as well, and it was one of those things where I actually think if I'd have done it again, I'd have gone down the Infamous route and done that.
I agree.
And instead of just like mindless violence, it had something to it.
I think Infamous is everything Prototype wanted to be.
Yeah.
It was very stylized. It was gritty. Like, it was very dark. I remember it being quite a dark game. And I quite liked the stylish kind of punk rocky kind of esque vibe to it. The city was very vibrant. There was lots going on. Vibrant in a very dark kind of way, if you get what I mean.
Wasn't his name Cole McGrath or something like that, the main character? I'm sure it was. I'm sure his name was Cole.
Impressed if you can remember that.
I think
Cole was a cooler character as well.
Yeah,
I just think he was cooler.
They redesigned
and
him.
electricity is a lot cool.
They redesigned him. So when they this is a fun little tidbit because I'm not boring, geeky. Is when
You're
they
a
actually
nerd, Josh.
Yeah, I'm a nerd. So when they actually dropped Infamous 2 and everyone was like, oh my god, it looks so good, the actual character model of Cole was changed for the final product. Like he came out. Yeah, they had a design of him and they brought him out. They did like a test gameplay footage of him, and everyone was just like, no. And they did a Sonic, and they changed him and made him more in line with the first Infamous's character, because I think he was like bald and like, because I think he had hair and a beard or whatever.
He had like a skinhead, didn't he? Not like bald, but like proper buzz.
Well, I think they give him hair in this one. They were like, oh, this is now Cole now, and he's a bit more edgy and this and that, and they're like, that's not Cole.
Just don't change it too much.
No.
You know, I hate when games do that. I also really hate, you know, that Spider-Man, the remaster on PS5 and PC, they changed what he looked like. I think he looks worse, personally. I think he looks worse, but that, you know.
His name was Cole McGrath.
You're such a geek. You're a nerd, Josh. All right, you're a nerd.
Oh dear.
Well done, Josh. You got that right.
Sorry.
Well done.
I'm
no,
so
it's fine.
sorry.
Honestly, I'm impressed.
Yeah.
So yeah, Cole. They went on to make those games. I never actually played Infamous 2, but I did play a bit of Second Son.
Yeah, I did.
Never played the second one. I don't know why either, considering how much I really liked the first one. Maybe I just didn't want to give money to Sucker Punch. I don't know.
I think the problem is when these games dropped, and around those times, there was just, and I'm sorry to say this, better things to play. And like, in terms of like Infamous 2 and Infamous, like I played Second Son. And I didn't finish it. I didn't finish it. Like it didn't grab me for so long because it was quite a hard game to get around. And like once you'd like narrowed down what you needed to do and like the traversal, because it was all smoke powers, I believe it was, where you'd go and you know it looked fantastic, it looked phenomenal, but it was just it didn't like pull me in like Godfather. You know, they think I'm out and they pull me back in, and it just didn't. And I got it free with my PlayStation. And I probably got, you know, a third of the way through where you get the light powers where you can fly about and traversal everywhere, and you know, and I just didn't finish it because it was just like, this is really, really hard. I'm not enjoying this. I'm just going through the same motions, and I just sort of like bounced off it. But that's not to say that the quality wasn't there. Like it's a phenomenal looking game. Like I said, now this would put Last of Us 2. You know, up in the ringer, like
it'd give a lot of games out now a run for their money.
Yeah.
Considering, especially, you know, as we've entered into, you know, this, well, not entered, we've been in it, we're fair few years into this generation's life cycle.
Yeah,
there's not a huge difference graphically between a lot of games that came out last gen and this gen.
No,
and I think, you know, we have reached a graphical prowess like this. There's a height that I think we haven't exceeded yet. And a lot of that was set from games like Infamous Second Son. You know, they really set the tone for this for the future games that have come out. And that goes to show, that kind of nicely segues into the next part of Sucker Punch's story, which is, you know, Ghost of Tsushima. And I think what's really interesting and I really like about Sucker Punch is that they really take risks with their IPs. You know, if you put Sly, Infamous, and Ghost next to each other, I would not think they were made by the same studio in any way, shape or form, right? But they are, which I really like. And you can see that they've taken everything that they've learned from the journey with Infamous, making open world games, and just really expanded upon that over the next 6 years after Second Son came out for Ghost of Tsushima. So Ghost came out in 2020 at the height of a pandemic, which I think, considering how well the game turned out during the pandemic, it speaks a lot for itself, how much effort they put into this. And a little fun fact, a lot of the creative aspect for this game was done from home. You know, they even got voice actors to record their lines from home for this game because pandemic, you know, you'd think, I really like that, you know, some people didn't take the pandemic and go, we can't do anything. You know, they go, right, it's just a curveball. How do we work around it? And they worked around it. And I think the game really pays off. And I think, from what I understand, they didn't receive a lot of backlash, but a lot of people were curious as to how a Western company are going to make a game set in the depths of Japan, which is obviously in the eastern part of the world. And something that Brian Fleming said that really resonated with me. Your goal isn't to pretend to be something you're not. The goal is to be a great version of yourself. And I think that's really interesting. It kind of, it isn't, it's essentially what it's saying is they're not trying to recreate Japan. They're not trying to recreate history and do it detail for detail, true to the source. You know, it's it's what they believe works for the style of the game. And I think that's why it pays off. It's not pretending to be something it's not, right? It is exactly what it says on the tin. It's a game set in Japan with aspects of Japan, but it isn't too dissimilar to something else that could be existent. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I think for the naysayers that went, well, a Western game can't make a Japan game. You know, what are they doing? Why are they doing this? I think you can completely agree with me. They proved them wrong.
Yeah,
massively.
I think 100%. You know, they brought this game out, and I remember when it got announced. It was announced during Paris Gaming Week in 2017. We saw a cinematic trailer, so just a teaser trailer, and everyone went, "Damn!" But then everyone went, okay, is it going to be some tasteless Japanese game?" And I don't think it is. You know, I imagine there's a lot of people from Japan, or even parts of country where the Mongols originated from. So I don't think that Mongolia exists anymore. So I would just say it's China. They probably both look at this game and go, it's not quite the best representation of it. And I think that's the thing, right? You've got to understand that they're not trying to recreate how it really was, how it was really represented. You know, they're trying to make an experience that is both enjoyable but kind of respectful.
I agree. I do agree completely. Like, they're trying to make a side, you know, a slice of life, you know, to quote Ghibli. You know, they're trying to make their own thing. They're trying to sort of, you know, choose their own art style, and they do. They convey emotion. It's very well rendered. It's very well made. You know, just like breaking down some of the stuff within the game, like, you know, we talked about Infamous and like the electricity, but like the side of the actual game itself, you know, you can be a silent assassin, or you can be a honorable samurai, and you can choose how to, you know, attack things. And they make an open world, and they introduce mechanics such as like the wind direction thing.
I love that. You know, with the petals flying through that. Oh.
Minimum HUD. You can't see it. They just literally go, here's a really beautiful game. Do you want to see 10,000 icons on the screen, or do you just want to see the game and be directed? And when you press a button, you flick up your touchpad on the old PS4 controller when it came out. I don't know if it's probably the same on the PS5. And it'd fire the wind off, and it'd tell you this is the direction of where your next thing is, and you just follow the wind. And as you're following the wind, a bird might come out, and you go, oh, that's a thing. Or a fox might appear, and oh, that's something else.
Yeah, there's a shrine. Usually a shrine's nearby if there's a fox, isn't there?
Yeah, and if you go to the shrines, you get new swords, which was always, you know, I always hunted for the swords, and it was always one of those things where it's like, I'm a sucker for a good collectible, but you've got to give me a good collectible to get. If you're like, oh, you can make your own samurai, and you can choose your own sword style, and you can choose your own armor, take my money. I'm there. I'm searching for everything. Every single thing on the map, I will be there to find every variation of a samurai sword. I am there. And they knew what people wanted to do. They knew that, you know, even small little details, which is like, and, you know, we'll quote another similar open world game, Red Dead, where you have to do everything manually. Like, if you're making a fire, you're getting down, you do something manually. Whereas Ghost went, you know, it's really tedious when you're trying to pick something up off the floor and you're on a horseback and getting up and down off your horse. Nobody wants to do that. So while you're flying along, you can just pick stuff up while you have tree branches and items as you're going along. Quality of life stuff that people just go, no one's going to like getting up and down their horse all the time, so let's just make them pick it up while they're on the horse. And it just made the game more entertaining, just little tweaks, because they knew that, like,
there's nothing more annoying than a game's decision to not allow you to loot while you're on a horse. And most annoyingly, Zelda, the Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, the button that you use to pick up things is also the button you use to make your horse accelerate.
Yes, I can see how that get quite frustrating.
Really annoying. And so if I'm like, oh, I needed that. But it's, we'll talk about Zelda another time. But yeah, you know, there's lots of quality of life games. And what one of the points that they made when I was doing some research is the best changes that they made was taking stuff out of the game. You know, be disciplined. You know, give the player space to explore and kind of learn how to do this game. Don't give too many tools, because if you sometimes if you put too much in a game, it doesn't always make it a good product. You know, I think one of the things that was raised about Starfield during their thing is, yes, there's lots to do, but sometimes having lots to do doesn't mean the game's going to be great. And this is not me saying Starfield's going to be great at all. We're not getting into that. Starfield is going to be amazing. But the point I'm taking from that is, you know, having lots of a good thing isn't always a good thing.
Yeah, so I agree. I agree that what they put in was, you know, was serviceable for what... Well, not even serviceable. It was perfect for what was in the game. In terms of, like, just to touch on Starfield for a second... that game is 500 times the size of this, so including things that's just like a plethora of things to go and do and mechanics to add and etc. It makes sense in that thing. So I think naysayers being like, well, there's too much in there. There's a lot of game for it, and like Ghost of Tsushima is very much a refined thing. You know, yes, you could have had like
Ghost is a very narrative-driven game. It doesn't need to be as big as it is, right?
You could have had certain things in there that, you know, would have switched it up and would have given you more choices and would have done, you know, X, Y, and Z, but actually, they are right, you know, taking things out and going, actually, let's keep it narrative focused. Let's, you know, focus on the combat. Let's focus on the stealth side of it. Let's focus on, you know, the collectible side of it, and then focus on the environment. Really refined each of those things. If you've got something else to focus on, somewhere along the development cycle, something's going to suffer. And that's where it is. You know, if you've got, you know, 10 people working on 9 different things, then you've got one more person focused on something else. Whereas if you've got 10 people working on 5 things, you've got 2 people working on that thing at once, and you can get more of a quality product rather than just going, well, actually, this is kind of half-assed. Let's get this, you know, sent out, you know. And I think, they made a right decision bringing it back in and going, right, actually, this is what works. Let's work on this and make this the best it can be, and then focus on what else, you know, around it. Like, and I think one of the main things in terms of like the art style, the environment itself is its own character.
Oh, it's amazing how, you know, they went from something like Infamous, which is very post-punk, pop, like punky-esque kind of vibe, or Sly, which is kind of like
Saturday morning
stylized, cartoony, to something that felt very real. And you could see that they put so much work into developing this environment.
Yeah.
And one of the things that really amazing is when they were trying to decide how big the map is, because the map is quite big. The island of Tsushima is quite big.
Yeah.
What they did is worked out the scale of the real Tsushima, and then made different size versions of that scale to find one that fitted, because obviously it's not going to be the exact size of Tsushima, because Tsushima is a big island. So they built loads of versions and tried to work out which one would be the most beneficial to what they wanted to put in the game.
I genuinely thought it was actually like modelled after Tsushima. I've just literally tweaked on that now. That is like a first. I'm like, is it not the island of Tsushima? Like,
it's this is the island of Tsushima,
but like in a different sort of, like, they've made it to work in like a video game sort of environment.
Yeah, they probably confined it a little bit, you know, because it doesn't need to be that. And I think, so I think the world is stunning, right? You know, there's obviously not as much going on in the overworld as, like, you know, Infamous. That's a very confined space with lots going on around every corner, whereas there's a lot of. It's not empty, but it's. What's the word I'm looking for?
It's vast.
It's very tranquil.
Yeah, but it's
a very tranquil world.
It's not supposed to be a busy world as well, because it's an island and it's set when it's set. You're not going to see, you know, cars everywhere and, you know, millions of people on one island. It's going to be like little villages, and, you know, it works in its favour being that, you know, it is sparse. But if you look at their back catalogue, all their environments are all very well crafted. Like, even from Sly's, you can see the efforts there. Like, let's make a really decent
100%.
level and work around the mechanics, and, you know, make the mechanics great and the levels great, and everything else will fall into place. And like with Infamous, you know, the first Infamous game, like I said, skating along the power lines to get you around the environment. Yeah, you can sort of like climb up buildings, and you had like a really dynamic like parkour system where you'd go up the buildings and you can climb on different things. But then you'd unlock a power where you could like zoom across the power lines, and you'd be bolting around the city. And it's just little tweaks like that. It's like, well, actually, not everybody wants to like jump across buildings all the time. And it's not a huge map because it's back in the PS3 days. It's not going to be a huge map, but it needs to be big enough that, you know, people can get around and they go, well, actually, let's let you zoom across power lines, and then in Second Son, it's like, oh, actually people do like climbing up buildings, but do you really want to climb up buildings? Let's put a smoke vent next to it where you can unlock a power where you can zoom through the smoke vent and shoot up at the top of the building. You know, it's little things like that, and I think that's what makes their world so believable and livable. And it's the little things where they tie stuff together. Like, you can make a vast open world and put everything in there, but if you're not putting the little details in there, like, you know, mud kicking up when your horse rides, or these little like tiny things, or your cape flying about, you know, that you're wearing a cloak in this case, or, you know, when he cleans his sword in Tsushima and the blood flies on the floor, you know, those little things, you just like
the details.
It's nothing, but like when I've just annihilated like 18 people and he's just like sword in his arm, pulls it across, you're just like, damn, I'm hardcore.
It's cool.
It's
a cool little detail, and it kind of gives it. I don't know if authenticity is the right word, because, you know, samurais might have very much not done that, but they also might have done it. But I think it just gives
I hope they did.
It's almost like one thing that Sucker Punch do very well is a very good attention to detail. And I think, you know, they from what I'm learning here, and I think this doesn't apply to just the fact that they've made a historic based game, is, you know, your job, if you're making these in a period time, your job isn't to be, you know, to know how to do it. Just be curious about the industry, the environment that you're making. No one's expecting you to be an expert on Japan. Just be curious about Japan, right? Go and learn from it. Surround yourself from people that can give you these cultural details, and just take the basics from it, and, you know, run with that. Don't try and make it so historically accurate, because you're probably going to make something worse. And I think a point that they made, which I think is quite interesting, and I think everyone should remember this, is that, you know, the more research you do into understanding this, is that into understanding, you know, let's say that period of time during feudal Japan, the more you'll realise that there isn't actually an agreement on what is fact. So when you're reading history books, 9 times out of 10, two books will not have the exact same information. So who knows what the right answer is? I think what they said, you know, what they said, and what I really like, and I think you can see that resonates with it in terms of visuals, is go and look at artifacts, the weapons, the armor. And I think those are the bits that are going to, you know, if you get those right, I think everything else doesn't matter, really. You know, get the outfits that Jin... is it Jin?
Yeah, it's Jin
Sakai, isn't it? Yeah. The outfits you can get for Jin are some of the coolest armors and like weapons and stuff I've ever seen in a video game. Like, even from the helmets to the masks to just the robes and stuff, I've never seen anything like it. And that for me is what separates Ghost from a lot of games. Like, I like the fact that you can customize a character, but when you get customization items and they're just dead, like there's one or two that really stands out, and then you've got like other items that I'm like, why would I wear that? Like, I'd wear that ironically because it's goofy. That in a game like that doesn't work, right? It's a very serious game. So yeah, I think what we can see from Sucker Punch is, with every IP that they've made, you know, they've really put the time and effort into understanding the world they're trying to build. You know, take the time, learn the value of what's important to them, and put that into the game. And I think that works in their favor, and I think that's why they're going to continue to make great games. They have done so far. Any closing thoughts?
No, I said no, and I'm going to give you a closing thought. So yeah, I've just that, you know, I think they've gone from strength to strength. I think it's a good way of like seeing, you know, shining a light on this studio. They're obviously going to make the second sequel to Ghost of Tsushima, but their pedigree beforehand. Whilst we've been doing this, I've been sort of googling to see if they're on Steam. But Tyler's well aware I'm going to get a PS5 this year, so I think I'll have to be revisiting Infamous and Sly Cooper, which is a crying shame.
Now we've spoken about it, I really want to play all these games now.
Yeah. So I think I'll be revisiting those, and I think that even though there were naysayers about Ghost of Tsushima, I was already sold. One of my favourite films of all time is Last Samurai.
One of my favourite films of all time is The Seven Samurai. I have a poster.
There you go.
Of it
we're
right
already there.
And the fact that one of the game modes in that game is that you can play as if it was a Akira Kurosawa film. chef's kiss, mate.
Sold. They do little details, and that for me is they're just going from strength to strength, and I actually can't wait to see what they drop next.
Yeah, I think Sucker Punch, as a small studio as they are, they're going to be one to watch for the next few years, I'd say. However, before we wrap things up, what do we always have? CNC recommendation, and it comes back to me. And I do have one, and I'm hoping you've played this game. I've gone for a game this time. And it's a really fun, sort of, I wouldn't say completely open world, it's an open area game called Maneater.
Oh, the shark game.
So you get like 4 or 5 different areas, and you play as this bull shark, and you start as a bull shark pup, and you work your way up to this megalodon-sized shark that has like laser teeth, and it's just insane. It's so good. Yeah. You just go around terrorizing humans and aquatic creatures alike, and it's like I think the story revolves around you avenging your mother, isn't it? There's like, because it's about like a TV series, isn't it? This hunter hunting these bull sharks, and then this hunter kills the shark that he plays at's mother, and then you essentially avenge that, and you can kill anything from sperm whales to humans in this game, and it's so funny. Really cool game, cool, interesting action. Like the fights are really cool and stuff. You get some really cool abilities. So you can pick that up on pretty much most game consoles now. I don't think there's anything. Most this generation and last generation consoles have this game. So, Maneater, that is my recommendation for the week.
Nice,
Sweet.
like it.